Overall, the news is encouraging. According to the Centers for Disease Control, there is a 30-year low in youth homicide rates. For the African American community, the news is still grim. Homicide remains the leading cause of death among African American males ages 15 to 34. Overwhelmingly, the homicides are intraracial, meaning black on black murder. Up next on Another View, our roundtable pundits examine the reasons why our young men are killing each other and what programs are available to help stem the tide. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. Another View is coming up next, right after this news from NPR.
Discussing the issues and celebrating the successes of the African American community. This is Another View.
And good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. One only needs to watch the evening news to know that there is a problem. Just about every newscast begins with the latest homicide. For young African American men, homicide is the leading cause of death, more so than car accidents, suicide, and diseases combined. Our Another View Roundtable is here to talk about this issue and to offer some solutions. Please welcome Roger Chesley, a columnist with the Virginian-Pilot, and you can read his columns every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Hi, Roger.
Hello, Barbara. Good to see you another month.
Absolutely. Love the second Fridays of the month. Carol Pretlow is a political science professor with Norfolk State University. Welcome back, Carol.
Well, thank you. Good to be back.
Bill Thomas is our resident conservative and community activist. Hey, Bill.
Actually, I'm thinking about the Tea Party, so
Oh my.
maybe have to fill out an application for them. But hi, how are you guys?
I'm doing great.
Good.
And Will LaVeist is a journalist, author, and talk show host. Hey, Will.
Pleasure.
How are you?
Pleasure
Now,
to be
before
with
we
you.
get into this discussion, and we've got a lot to talk about today, I want to take a moment to say a huge congratulations to Roger Chesley for his Salute to Excellence Award from the National Association of Black Journalists.
Well, thank you, Barbara.
And he won for commentary, Roger Chesley. And was there a specific topic?
You were allowed to enter 3 columns, and it's been so long since I entered the column. But I know one of them was on the piece about Leslie Paul and RAP's the swimming program, and I think that got good response. And so that was that was probably the leading column among those 3 that I sent in.
Fantastic. And not to be outdone, our very own Lisa Godley won for radio feature, A Conversation with Take 6, done by Lisa Godley and our audio engineer who just left us, Perry Smith. And as a matter of fact, we played that story last week in our Best Of show. So congratulations to you and to Lisa. That's fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you.
And Carol, you've been away from us for a little bit. Tell us very briefly what you've been doing.
Okay, I've been looking at the foreign policy and in the Obama administration and the Obama doctrine.
Wow.
Yes. From a legal perspective.
That's a comedy right there.
Oh, shut up.
Heavy duty topic there. Okay, let's get into this discussion. And audience, I really would love to hear from you today on 2 points. One, if your thoughts on why African American males in particular, the numbers have ticked up significantly. Why are they killing each other? And secondly, if you know of programs in our community that are working, we'd love to hear from you. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Okay, there's an article written in the April edition of the American Journal of Medicine. It was written by Dr. Charles Hennekins of Florida Atlantic University School of Medicine, among other researchers. Now, their conclusion is that homicide of young African American men is epidemic, and that the high homicide rate is a health issue and a major cause for politicians and policymakers to be concerned. They say that guns are the problem, and we need to treat homicide like we treat cigarette smoking by creating laws that limit exposure to guns. Will, that make sense to you? Is that the problem?
It does make sense in the context of when they say that policies need to be implemented to address this, is because you cannot talk about what's going on now without talking about the horrendous policy that our government put forth, which is the so-called war on drugs. That policy has unleashed havoc within the black community and has unleashed a lot of the dramatic statistics that you see. Accelerated incarceration rates, taking, putting people in jail for small amounts of drugs, which does what? Taking them, law breaking, true, but and absolutely true, but taking them away from their home. So then you're going to hear callers talking about it starts in the home, and we need more fathers to be involved. But our government already having the model of prohibition and knowing what prohibition unleashed and how it had to reverse on prohibition, does this policy of so-called war on drugs that has unleashed the tragedy that we see. And the sad thing about it is that a lot of our own black politicians, namely Charles Rangel, built his career on that. And all this, you can look this up. Charles Rangel's from Harlem. Charles Rangel was a Korean War veteran. He knows, a decorated veteran. He knows what war is about. He is from Harlem. He knows what's going on in Harlem. And he was Ebony Magazine called him a foot soldier on the war on drugs. He built his career on this. And a lot of our own black politicians, I personally believe that you got the foundation annual event coming up, great networking event. It's a great time for them to get together and repent for them supporting this policy and to start putting in place initiatives to reverse what they helped to unleash.
What's going on? Bill, you're saying it's not a government problem.
No, actually, I do agree with Will on one part of it. I do agree with him on one part, and that is the prohibition against this war on drugs. It's not going to work, never was going to work. But where his theory falls out is the fact that when we were poor, had less, we weren't in these kinds of issues. I mean, they just didn't happen. And there were drugs out there. There was heroin and things out when I was growing up. I saw people use it. I saw people get into it. There was always marijuana was out there. But again, there is no government policy other than stop locking up people for a medical condition, which is taking drugs, which I totally agree with. I think we should, same way we're going to let all these illegal immigrants who broke the law come in here and forgive them for their sins, forgive these kids who took marijuana and pot and all that kind of stuff, even crack cocaine to a certain limit, as long as they wasn't selling it, excuse me, and as long as they weren't hurting anybody, let's let them out too. But at the end of the day, the biggest problem here is that the breakdown of the African-American family. We have in some cities in Virginia, I sent you the list of fatherless births, 100%. You can't have that. Women, as great as they are and as loving as caring they are, can't raise these big men. You got to have a man there, a grandfather or somebody there taking them under control and letting them know that there are consequences to breaking the family law. You represent my house. When I tell my two boys, you will not go out there and be disrespectful because I will take care of you. Now, one is 6'5" and one's maybe 6 feet, and I just say, you got to go to sleep. Okay, because I'm going to get you. Okay? So what I'm saying, though, in the vernacular is that we really used to have this community of families raising our children. We don't have it anymore. People don't take in consideration the need to have fathers or some loving man in a relationship to help raise their children.
Roger, drugs the problem? That's why the kids are killing each other?
Well, that's part of the problem and the disproportionate way that we are treated in the criminal justice system. Our rates of drug use and selling are about the same as whites and Latinos, and yet we are disproportionately represented in the criminal justice system in terms of arrests and convictions. However, I think that a bigger root of that is just we don't seem to love each other very much. We seem to disrespect each other a lot. I mean, a lot of these things are people who, A, either know each other and still kill folks, or B, they're over beefs that really don't make a whole lot of sense. It's not worth somebody being killed over. And to me, if you had a greater respect for yourself and other people, you wouldn't be doing this.
Absolutely.
Carol?
Yeah, I agree with all of you, but I wonder, how do you get back to creating this love, respect, family, community atmosphere? You know, we all say it, we all want it, but what do you do to get back there? Individually, we can exhibit as much love and support as we can, but how do we get back to having a community responsibility, to feeling that our academic institutions and our churches and all must cooperate in this?
Well, I think one way we get back to it is by not being overly nostalgic, as if there was a time where we had all this peace and tranquility. That time never existed.
That's not
You've
true.
always had urban violence. You've always had that. America has always had it. I can tell you all, I'll tell your listeners, go and find the movie The Gangs of New York. Okay? That movie gives you a great idea of what America was like in urban communities. And these are white gangs and people, lawlessness. And what changed the lawlessness? The Industrial Revolution, the people getting jobs, coming out of the Civil War, and prosperity coming in to the cities. When people have jobs to go to, and they start seeing value in their lives, they start seeing they have something to lose by picking up a meat cleaver and just killing somebody, they start moving away from that kind of behavior. And what you see was what happened in that period. Blacks, as they were coming up from the South, what happened? They were not locked. They were not able to jump into those jobs. So blacks started developing a culture and started staying caught up in this culture of violence. What Bill is talking about is his small experience.
That's not true.
In his community. Okay. But when you start talking about urban communities and all over, and you really analyze it, there's been a history and a culture of this. This is why when we started coming through the civil rights movement in the 70s, so many of us were the first in our families to go to college.
Anyhow.
We're the first in our families to come out of this.
You're going to go
the
on
drug
with this
war
tirade.
reversed.
You're going to
Okay,
find
let him
excuses.
finish.
The drug war reversed.
Excuses.
I'm not making excuses. I'm giving you the facts.
The reality is, among us here, and I bet it's all five of us here, would say that, in effect, when we grew up, our churches were the central pillars in our community. This stuff may have gone on. It was talked about in church. It was preached about the people who did bad. I know I grew up in Kansas City and I grew up in Cleveland. And in Cleveland, where my uncles owned 5 gas stations, you could go a month without seeing a white person. We didn't even see them. And I don't remember anybody dying in Cleveland or Kansas City. There was one murder in Kansas City. Lawrence Graves killed his soldier with a switchblade. That is the only one that I knew about. And there were other things that happened, but this violence, this disrespect, this immorality, this lack of faith in God or anything is something new. And our children are unchurched now. They have no values. If you raise somebody with this education and you don't give them any morals or any values, you're just raising a maniac to society. And that's the way it used to be. And that's not nostalgia. That's just the way it was. It wasn't tolerated at all, period. If I walked down the streets in Kansas City, it was 1 o'clock and school was in session, somebody would come and slap me upside my head. And y'all know that. If you didn't miss your Catholic school, or if you weren't at your school, I don't know what they're going on in New York, that old liberal place out there that's gone to hell, and it always was hell. But in middle America, no, I'm serious. I'm serious. This stuff wasn't tolerated.
So didn't he just make my point?
No,
I just told him that. I just said that to you,
Carol.
I just said that to you.
Well, you know, I think it's a number of things. Oh, yes, I do think the church is central, but I think the family has a central place, well, in the black community, or the community that I came from. And it was not even about just a mother and a father, because I had friends whose parents were separated, but the community said, oh, there's little so-and-so, her dad isn't here, let's help.
Right.
And now we are displaced, maybe because some of us moved out of the central community. I don't know.
Let's talk to Joe King, who calls us from Hampton. Hi, Joe. You're on the air. Joe?
Hello?
You're on the air.
Yes. Yeah, well, I am Joe King, and I'm over here in Hampton, in Norfolk State is where I was 4 years. And but what I wanted to say is that, I'm a businessman, retired military officer. And,
Okay, Joe, can you get to why do you think that the community is having such a
I just
problem?
want to get credibility to, I know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I just built a culture and historic society thing here in Hampton on Shell Road, 1911 Shell Road in Hampton. And I have a whole lot of money.
Okay.
A whole lot of money. And what we're doing is working with the family. We're actually doing it. We're going to be working with families, teaching them to understand America and values and so forth.
Okay, Joe, thank you so much. We'll talk about that as we talk about solutions, because but
that is a solution.
That is a solution. That is a solution. But before we delve even further into solutions, I want to ask you guys' opinion on something else.
Can I, before we get too far off that, I'm going to side a little bit with Bill. I don't recall the level of homicides growing up in the 60s among blacks killing other blacks. I just don't recall that in the 60s and 70s, that being the issue. And to see the number, the frequency of homicides that are going on, it's astounding. And it's astounding even here in an area that is not necessarily majority black, but where so many of the victims, probably 80 to 90% of the victims any given year are black. Of the homicide victims here.
The numbers. Listen to this. In Norfolk, according to the police department, year to date, okay, there have been 18 homicides in the city of Norfolk, 14 of which were African Americans. Okay, but in June of this year, there were only 4. So since we've been together in the 2 months, my point being, there have been 10 more people in the city of Norfolk since June who have been murdered. In Portsmouth, there are 2. In, let's see, Newport News, there are now 9.
How about Hampton?
Hampton, 13.
Dang.
Year to date. 13 year to date, and 10 of them are African American.
Barbara,
go ahead.
They're making my point. What I said. What is your point? Was that don't be nostalgic to say that there was no violence and none of this stuff was happening in the past. It was there. And what I'm saying is that the war on drugs exacerbated this. When you create an underground economy, right, and you got people who are already engaged in, like he just said, they're using switchblades, right? That's what they were doing in our time. Because, Barbara, you blew up in Baltimore. You know what I'm saying is the truth. All right? So they want to go somewhere else with it. Come on, we know that.
And I think that also the respect is also an issue.
So you create this underground economy by which you can make all of this money and you can get all of this access to high-powered guns now. And that's what you're going to use, and that's what happened back in Prohibition, where you had Al Capone and the massacre, the Valentine's Day massacre, when they were killing each other, the gangsters were killing each other. Now you exacerbated with this war on drugs, so now you got the Crips and the Bloods with all these high-powered machine guns killing each other.
Carol?
You exacerbated it, Carol. And that's what I'm saying.
But what now?
Here's what I'm saying too. When they first integrated the schools in Kansas in 1965, our parents fought against it. They didn't want us to be integrated with white kids because they said those kids have no morals, no values. They're disrespectful to their parents. Do not act like them. Even though we're forced to integrate with them. And that's not all of them, but my parents said they didn't want to have that kind of behavior, and it wasn't tolerated. And now you're going to say, well, what's the solution?
There's a difference in the way that people were raised.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
You teach my kids aren't out here taking drugs. They're not selling underground economy.
We're all agreeing on that.
But I'm just saying
I just said they exacerbated it. That policy exacerbated.
But the question then becomes: Is it worse now in terms of the adding on of the disrespect that you were talking about, Roger?
I think you by both measures you'd have to say that is indeed the case.
Okay, Charles joins us from Norfolk. Hi, Charles. You in the air?
Hi. Thank you for taking my call, Barbara. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I've listened to the discussion, and I'm probably out of line, but I'm a little disgusted. we keep talking about yesteryear, and we keep talking about our childhood. I'm an octogenarian, so I've been around the horn. We have not addressed the primary issue for our youth. Not only our youth, but our country. The law itself, the federal law says if you do not recreate your crime in 5 years, you should be clear. That is not the case. Our youth do stupid things, and we all did them. I hear your panel telling how virtuous they were with halos. That's not true. We all did things that brushed against it, whether it was intentional or unintentional. But the forgiveness existed. People at those ages under the law could have an infraction and come back and rebuild their lives. Now they cannot. A kid has one joint, he's put in jail, and that follows him. He cannot work, he cannot live in public housing, he cannot do other things. If we want to change the system, let's talk about that area that most affects our youth and our adults.
Okay, Charles.
Thank you
so much. You're going along kind of with what Will was saying, and we appreciate your phone call, Carol.
So, from what I'm hearing, then the next step would be let's work with our legislators and our politicians to change the law.
They're not going to change the law. For the very reason he's saying Rango didn't change the law, he added to it. Because the people that we elect do not reflect any kind of morals or values of our communities. They get elected to take care of themselves. They grab the power and they don't do anything effective as a whole that's going to improve the life, health, safety, and welfare of the black people that they're supposed to be representing.
So then we replace them. When we go to the polls, we replace them with people.
No, y'all are going to vote for Democrats. All you got to do is show up and be a Democrat, and all of y'all are going to go vote for them. So that's not going to happen.
Democrats and Republicans voted for the drug war on drugs. Democrats and Republicans.
Let me throw this out at you. Senator Sharon Weston Broome of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and former history professor Jimmy McJamerson of Grambling State University. They wrote a big article on the blog Black Blue Dog, which is the name of the blog.
Black Dog.
Black Blue Dog. But on the causes. And they said that there are 3 causes for the reason why young people are killing each other. Their first reason is idolizing thug rappers. Second, lack of black history.
Okay.
And thirdly, family environment, lack of education. Roger, what do you think about that order? I mean, idolizing black thugs really has that much of an impact?
I really think as somebody who covered the police beat in Detroit, so much of the crime that I saw where young black men were involved in crimes, I mean, their families were so messed up. And I mean, I think and either the mom often it was a single parent, and often it was the mother who might have been trying to do a good job, but had so many children and had so many responsibilities, it was difficult to do, or the parents had totally abdicated their role. And I really think it starts so much with the family. I mean, because that's going to be the primary unit you're going to be dealing with most of the time, more so than schools, more and to a certain extent more so than church. Okay. So you have to try to strengthen families, and you have to there's a movie that talks about you need a license to get a dog, but you don't need a license to be a parent. So, I mean, it is a responsibility that some of us, quite frankly, are not really doing very well at.
And so, Carol, how do we turn them around?
Well, I think we go back to the community, and we go back to our churches to do things outside of the structure of the church. We see young people who maybe have a single mother who needs some help. Maybe we could organize or develop a system by which those people get some help for raising their children. And maybe, after school study, or maybe preschool education, things like that maybe can be done in the community.
Bill, you shaking your head.
I have no halo on my head, but I didn't kill anybody, I didn't shoot anybody, and I didn't impregnate anybody that I didn't marry. So that's with that. History is important. History is important. The other thing is about the churches. These churches around here today are nothing more than entertainment centers. They're not open to the public.
But that's
they could
where
be
we
open
change.
7 days a week.
Exactly.
You got to get that dancing minister out of there with the big override European car that are not exposing themselves to what's really being needed down here. They need to move back where they preach and where they service their community and talk to these people and be some kind of role model. These people don't have role models. Okay. And then lastly, the next thing that took us over the curve, and I agree with the drug crimes, I think that's awful, was welfare. We had government come in and said, we can take care of you black people. And we allowed government to push. Then they said the man couldn't stay in the house. If you get some help from the government, well, you can't be there. They disincentivized black men from working. They made women head of the household. And then, by just vacuum. And then all of these things combined together has created this place where today I don't think there is a solution.
If you're just joining us, we're talking with the round table. Roger Chesley with the Virginian-Pilot.
I got a solution.
Carol Pretlow with Norfolk State University. Community activist Bill Thomas and author and talk show host Will LaVeist. Go ahead, Will.
I think the authors of that article are onto something. Yeah. And I would encourage people to check out just 2 movies. I would encourage them to check out to understand when those authors talk about this. Idolizing the thug culture. Yeah. How to make money selling drugs. For those of you in the Hampton Roads area on the 21st, at the Narrow Expanded Cinema is going to be showing. And who's going to be in town is Major Neil Franklin. He's the executive director of LEAP, which is Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. This guy was a narc man. And he turned around and realized, wait a minute. Not only are my own men pawns in this, but the guys and the drug dealers on the streets are pawns in this. And so if you're looking at a poor kid in Baltimore, New York, in Wichita, in Detroit, and he's on the streets, and he's seeing that now the drug dealers, all of a sudden, getting all of this money, getting all of these cars, right, on this underground economy that our government has created. And he doesn't have the kind of support system that we had growing up in a household that Roger's talking about, with all of the people that he dealt with and stories that he's written and I've written in Phoenix and all of this and all over in Chicago. He is going to see that drug dealer and say, hey, maybe I need to go and do that, because he doesn't have the support system that he doesn't have the father that was around like my father was around, the mother who carried herself with dignity like my mother did. So it's going to be difficult. And he's going to make that bad decision. Another movie, The House We Live In, is another movie. Yeah. Your listeners must look at this, and you will look at this, and you will understand what's going on, what happened, how our government played a role in it, and what's happening on the ground level in the streets, and why a lot of these cats who are smart. These are some of our brilliant entrepreneurs who are out there on the corners killing each other.
I've always said that drug dealers, if they could channel that into legitimate business, they would be awesome entrepreneurs, Roger.
There was a family called the Chambers brothers in Detroit, and most of them got locked up in the late 80s, early 90s. But it was like an enterprise, and they knew how to run business. And unfortunately, it was the drug business. And but they were great entrepreneurs at what they were doing.
Absolutely. Martin joins us from Yorktown. Hi, Martin. You're on the air.
Hi. How's it going? I really appreciate this good conversation you all are providing us with today.
Thank you. What's your comment?
Yeah, my comment was, I think that our media has such an effect on the youth today. Whether it's every single negative thing portrayed in the media, or you never hear about positive things in the media. You never hear about, or you very rarely do. They touch upon it really quickly and move on to something negative. But it's perpetual waves of negativity throughout. You see black-on-black crime. And as far as being a member of a community, I think that whether you're white or you're black, if you ask 90% of people living in Hampton Roads here, are they a member of their community? They would look at you like they're dumbfounded. They wouldn't even know what you meant. To be a member of a community, to help other people out, to do volunteer things, to look out for one another and the betterment of each other and respect and all the things you all are talking about. I totally agree with everything you all are saying, but I do think that instead of looking for the reasons why this is happening, there's so many different reasons, there's so many different facets, so many different angles, and nobody's right or wrong on more than the other. I think the fundamental thing is we should look at what are the ways that, I know you have to know the reasons why a problem is going on to be able to stop it. But you also can set up roadblocks and fundamental stops before it even allows, and that's starting with the family. That's starting with mentors. That's starting with not emulating people that are violent, people that don't show respect to one another. And another thing, I'm not calling you all out on the panel or anything, but if you all think about how old you are and think about the media whenever you came up, and you think about the media and the generation, and, I mean, what was the worst role model or media person on the radio or on the TV that y'all had? And what was that? Somebody just smoking cigarettes or taking a drink or some liquor or something?
Okay, Martin. Absolutely.
Now it's like, y'all know what I'm even implying. I mean, it's everything under the sun is what somebody could be doing.
Okay, Martin, let's let the panel respond, because we got a bunch of calls that we want to try to get to, but we appreciate your point. Will?
He's talking about solutions, and he's talking about, again, not being nostalgic. And
He did not say that.
Past, yes, he did.
No, he did
the
not.
past media would not report about some of the things that were going on, but they certainly was going on. Go see the movie The Great Gatsby. Certainly stuff was going on, okay? So he said solutions.
Yeah.
And that's what we wanted to talk about, right?
Right. Solutions.
The CAL program is one of my solutions.
Let's talk about it.
At VMI. This program, 27 years. I was blessed to be able to speak and be their graduation speaker this year. They bring young men from all backgrounds, primarily minorities from all backgrounds, over to VMI, Virginia Military Institute. CAL stands for College Opportunity Workshop, where they take them for 4 weeks and groom these young men and give them training in math, give them training in English, give them training in team building and responsibility, taking these kids with these troubled backgrounds. And I sat there after talking to them and gave them a speech about my background and how they need to go back in the community and they need to now take what they learned and apply it. As each one of them, 28, coming up talking about how they were changed over these 4 weeks. Talking about how these are my CAL brothers. There was a white kid in that group that stood up there with all those predominantly black and Hispanic kids and said, these are my CAL brothers. I talked to his parents, his mom, not because his father's not in his life. And she was talking about how he was in trouble. He wouldn't listen, this and that, the other. He's standing up there saying, these are my CAL brothers. And in that room were blacks, whites, all these people, different faces, committed to young men, renewing their minds, thinking differently, like what Roger's saying, like we're all saying, and trying to come back in the community, do something different. 27 years operating on a shoestring budget.
And that seems to be a problem also in terms of the people who are trying to make a difference is the lack of money, Roger.
I'd like to talk about two programs.
Sure.
First, I'll do the first one, Teens with a Purpose, the youth movement. This was something that actually came out of the Basilica of St. Mary of the Immaculate Conception. Is now a separate entity. It was started by Deidre Love, who was a member. It is a member of the church. But what she wanted to do was first to get young people to understand, let's try to stop some of the issues with AIDS. Let's stop the infections. Let's stop the STDs. And then secondly, what she tried to do is get a lot of peer counseling and provide an environment where young people felt comfortable and free and could say things without judgment. And then also try to get those people involved in different issues and different activities. And it's been around now since 1996, incorporated in 2008, involved in a whole host of things, free to the participants, poetry, slam competitions, graphic design, and things of that nature.
Things that young people like to do and channels their energy into something different other than being on the streets.
Right, so I'll just leave that one for now.
Carol, you got a place or a group that you want to talk about?
Well, I think it starts very, very young, and I don't have a specific group, but I think of the scouting program, the Girl Scouts of America, and it goes from brownies to Girl Scouts to Senior Scouts and on. And I think they make a tremendous difference in people's lives.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk to Tasha in Hampton. Hi, Tasha. You're on the air.
Hello. It's actually Artie. Tasha, we work together. But we wanted to also mention that we partner with Teens with a Purpose. That was one of the organizations I was going to mention. But we do a program here at Lighthouse Outreach Incorporated called Yes, Dare to Dream. And it's a free 3-week youth empowerment program for teens ages 13 to 16, and it's designed to prepare students for a successful future and challenges them to dream big and work towards important life goals. We do conflict resolution, leadership development, youth character development, communication skills, some of the things that some of our kids don't learn, especially if they're in a home environment that only has one parent. So,
Artie, you said this is Artie, right?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was talking to the right person. Do you follow those kids, and can you tell us an example of a success?
We actually do follow the kids. We are a federally funded program, so we have an evaluation process that we have to go through. They take an evaluation to find out what their thinking is when they first enter the program. They do an evaluation at the end of the 3 weeks. We follow them at 6 months and again a year later, because we're trying to figure out which of our curriculum actually works best with them. And we've had lots of success and some stories of kids who've told us that they are actually communicating and thinking about things that they hadn't thought of before. Because obviously, if you're not being raised with thinking that you have other opportunities outside of what you see in your neighborhood or in your home, you may not be able to dream that big. But with our facilitators bringing in information and curriculum to them, telling them, how to avoid risky behavior, because our main goal, what we're trying to do, is lower the rate of teenage pregnancy. But we also, in doing that, talk to them about avoiding other risky behaviors that threaten their health and safety, which obviously, goes into the black-on-black crime as well. So it really does help their decision-making skills and breaking down their limiting views of what's possible, because if they don't see it at home, sometimes they just don't know that there are other options to them.
Thank you so much for calling and telling us about the program. Best of luck to you all. We appreciate that. I want to talk to Sean in Hampton. Hi, Sean. You're on the air.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
How you doing today?
Okay.
Basically, I'm a member of Hampton University. I'm a student at Hampton University. I'm a member of the Peer Counseling Organization and the Men's Caucus Organization. And basically, I feel that one of the main issues is the way that we're portrayed in the media. We're already looked at and targeted to make, the stupid decisions of selling drugs and to go out and kill each other. And, they kind of expect that from us. So one thing that our organization likes to do, we like to reach out to the young African American community while they still can take some type of criticism or take some type of positiveness from brothers, from their brothers and sisters. So I feel that personally, if we get the attention off of going and killing each other and put more attention on going to school, being on top of everything that you have going on in life besides all the other negative things they're expecting us to do, I think there'll be a lot of change in the community.
Okay. Sean, thank you so much for that call. We appreciate that. And the Men's Caucus at HU. Bill, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, I hear all these good programs, but I'm an economist, and I have to look at the realities of the numbers.
Okay.
The realities of the numbers in pretty much every urban crescent in Virginia, the average marriage baby born into a marriage is probably 10 to 15%. To get rid of an epidemic, you first have to resolve its source. And I see these islands of opportunity, no different than what W.B. Du Bois did with the talented 10th, and I say let's keep on pushing with that. Hampton University has a program of taking 20% of its student base, that kids that can't get in, and try to work with these kids and try to make them successful. So there are islands of opportunities. The problem that I have, because of my experience of living in an urban city, the environment is what gets you. You could go to VMI, you could go to Hampton, you could go to CNU, or you could go to these programs. But once you go back home in that neighborhood, the undergirding of the environment is outrageous. The reason I eventually moved out was not because of the violence. I could deal with the violence. I couldn't deal with the time I turned my head and somebody grabbed up one of my kids and got them thinking wrong. And so that's the reason I did that. And until we solve that problem, until we really, really, truly understand that that's the crux of the problem, because we do have smart entrepreneurs in these, and they're manipulators, and it's just, it's incensed. And if you don't recognize that we have to change that, the numbers are not going to get any better. And you can sit there and say all you want to say, and you're going to talk about all you want to say, and then the next thing you're going to look at, murder is going to be 90% of our kids. And then again, last night, end with this. It is in the media institutionalized racism that's really horrible. Now, these two little black kids over in Hampton, a little baby and a little toddler, got shot, one in the groin and then one in the head. And then there had an unfortunate opportunity of a tragedy happen in Virginia Beach. I guess a little kid was standing at a 4th of July celebration and a stray bullet killed a young man.
That was not in Virginia Beach. That's
Right. It was
Chesterfield area.
Chesterfield area?
Yeah.
Okay. Then, didn't like 2 Sundays ago, they had a full front page of that white kid up there? And then you don't see anything of any kind of respect or any kind of remorse or any kind of reporting that gives the same value to those 2 little babies, black babies, who died in Hampton. They didn't die, they got shot. They got shot. Or the ones that got shot and they don't see them as well. So I'm talking about, if you combine all that stuff, until we really get our fingernails dirty and get back in there and stick with the cause, move back in, make a dedicated effort of trying to be a part of the solution, really, really a part of the solution, I think the numbers will continue to get worse.
Well,
Bill is right, and I'm going to give him some numbers and some solution, and he's right. The way I was able to get out of public housing in Brooklyn, in Brownsville, anybody seen the movie New York's Finest, Brooklyn's Finest rather, that was where I lived. That's how it was. The way I was able to get out of that is that you have to be strong-willed. You have to be strong-minded, and it helped that I was an athlete, because athletes get a pass in the hood. So you're asking these kids to be that extremely strong-minded, extremely focused to be able to withstand all of those pressures. So what do I say? We're spending 40 years of this drug war, $1 trillion plus. It's $1 trillion on this. And drugs, I knew everywhere to get some weed. I knew everywhere to go to get some coke. It has not fixed anything but unleashed this hell upon our community.
I agree.
So why don't you take that $1 trillion that you've been spending and spend it on what you know would change the situation, like infrastructure and creating jobs. If a drug dealer is going to make some money and not have to worry about, like Roger reported on, like I reported on covering cops, of standing on the corner and getting shot upside his head, and you're going to give him a decent job, he's going to take that job.
Yeah.
Even if it means, hey, I can make, even if it means making less, he's going to take that job. Because all the reason why those guys are doing it is to take care of their families, is to try to cover the bad decisions that they made having babies out there. That's why they're doing it. So if you put that money into that and change it and infuse job opportunities and work with the churches to infuse moral opportunities and work with the schools, you're going to change people's minds. And how do I know this is true? Because this government did that coming out of Civil War, coming out of the Industrial Revolution. Everybody came into this country and went into ghettos. The Italians were in ghettos. The Jews were in ghettos. Before Brownsville was my black ghetto, it was a Jewish ghetto. Come on. We know this.
Carol?
Well, I agree, because the bottom line in our society is always money. And we downplay or have vicious things to say about capitalism, but the bottom line is, show me the money. And if you put the money there, the situation will change.
Roger, you had another group you wanted to talk about?
The other group that I had to talk about is the Hampton Roads Community Outreach. It was started by Ronnie Ratliff, who is a minister, a former Virginian-Pilot reporter, and he also happens to teach at Wilson High School. It's primarily operates in Portsmouth, but it's Christian-based, and it's trying to get mentorship of young people. We're trying to get them to make good decisions, and it seems to be very active so far, and it's done a whole lot in just a couple of years.
So it sounds like you all said, go ahead.
I do have a solution.
Go ahead, Bill.
Congressman Bobby Scott has been proposing a law. It's called Promise.
Yes. Youth Promise Act.
And but I've talked with him. I'm working with him. What he needs to do is find a way to pay for it. So what I'm trying to do is to get some Republicans to look at it this way. Let's let the nonviolent pot-smoking folks in jail out. let's take those savings and apply it to this program. So we'll take the money, the savings from these prisons, and then let's deal with that in terms of funding that program, because then that gets into solving the problem of infrastructure, educationals, and the things that are going to train people to do a job at a certain point in their life where we can eventually weed our way out of this.
Go ahead, Roger.
I just wanted to say, I think the last time that I checked with the Department of Corrections in Virginia, that it cost about $24,000 to $25,000 a year to keep somebody behind bars. Boy, if we could find a way, instead of using money for that, to try to do it for something creative, something productive, but it seems like it would just be a win for everybody.
What about the idea of having everyone try to reach out and talk to each one, teach one, each one bring one up, in terms of, while we wait for this money, while we wait for all these government programs and so forth? I hear you all saying that mindset and being able to get in there and change the mindset is so important, Roger.
I went to St. Bride's Correctional Center in Chesapeake a few months ago, and I was asked to give a speech. I think it was around Black History Month. And one of the members, and it was sad, there's about 50 people there, 47 of them were black men. And I was giving them my background, and one of the young men said, but I didn't grow up like you.
That's right.
I don't have the education that you have. I didn't have the parents who loved me the way that your parents loved you. I didn't have an intact family. And I really didn't have a good answer for him. And all I can say is I know this is the situation you're in now. Hopefully, maybe you can take parts of what I've told you about and use that. But it's a lot different coming from me based on the situation he was in. So, yeah, it's good to, I think, try to bring people up and try to mentor people. But you also have to have some connection. And sometimes the connection is just not there.
What do you think, Will?
I was going to say that I think that's exactly something that each individual can do. And another program where you got individuals actually doing that is a Sigma Beta Club. That's actually a program of my fraternity, Phi Beta Sigma fraternity, one of the oldest mentoring programs here in Hampton Roads, where individuals are doing just that. And some of the people that came out of this program, I was surprised to hear. Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin is the coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Tomlin is a member of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, right? George Wallace, the city councilman over in Hampton, he pulled me aside and told me, my sons went through that program. It made a difference. Now, this is George Wallace, who is at home, engaged with his sons. He had 3 sons. And he said that program helped me raise my sons. All 3 of his sons are successful and productive. George Wallace is a member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity. Now, why did I just mention all these fraternities? And I'm saying that here's an example of fraternities and sororities. Tomlin is not a Sigma. His brother is. He's not. These are examples of, instead of all this mischief making that a lot of us do, we're competing against each other and talking down about each other, actually doing something and each one reach one to make a difference in these individuals' lives.
Bill?
But at the end of the day, we don't have the courage to talk about it. We won't point out our bad, ineffective politicians. You point to a good one. Mr. Wallace does a good job. We won't talk about the lackadaisical churches that are absolutely doing nothing. We have this hidden secret conversations. We don't talk about it. We don't take a scorecard and rate our elected officials as to what good are you actually doing. I mean, how much money did you bring for Norfolk State or for Virginia State? How did we allow St. Paul's to close? That is a tragedy. So if we don't do that and point out the ineffective, poor, bad leadership that we have, and it's not everybody. It is surely not everybody, but there is a cause, a systemic cause as to why we can't get out of this hole. Number one, it's not the little hood rats on the streets that's holding us back. It's us. It's those who have been promoted in all areas, education, business, production, in these city halls and things. It's a doggone, I can say another word, shame that the city managers of Hampton and Chesapeake and Suffolk and Norfolk can't get together and say, we've had, 60, 70 murders in our region of African-American men. Let's not have no meeting about it. Let's figure out how we can do a job promoting program for one of these groups that y'all involved in and take 100 off the street. They won't do that. They won't talk about that, and we let them get away with it.
And on that note, we are going to have to wrap up in just a second. I want to make sure the program that the lady called in about is called Yes, Dare to Dream. And their number is 827-7787.
Is that her number or their number?
It's the number for the organization, Bill. So we talked about COW. We talked about Teens with a Purpose. You can find all of these on website, online. You have a number you want to give real quickly? Do you?
Geez, I wish I did.
You don't have? Okay.
Teens with a
we'll look at it. Teens with a Purpose.
747-2679. I better not give the Hampton Roads Community Outreach, but they are on Facebook.
Okay, that's fine. Roundtable, thank you so very much. As always, we always appreciate you being here, and we will see you again next month, and we'll continue a discussion and also look at solutions. I like that idea. Solutions. Absolutely. And before we go to the break, the jazz world lost a legend this week.
Sure did.
George Duke died of lymphocytic leukemia. He was 67 years old. The pianist released over 30 solo albums and was known for a wide range of styles, including jazz, soul, funk, and R&B. He was best known for playing with bassist Stanley Clarke. And as we go to the break, here's George Duke and Stanley Clarke with Sweet Baby.
When I think about your loving, the sunny evenings, the fun we used to share, looking through the memories in my mind. Since I've laughed and cried and thought it over, now I realize that it's never over, only set aside. Oh, it's you.
That's George Duke, who died this week, 67 years old, and our condolences to his family. And that's our show for this week. We invite you to share this program with your friends. Go to anotherviewradio.org and click on Stream Episode. And while you're there, please sign up for our eView newsletter. It's a once-a-week reminder of upcoming programs. Next week, we're going to be talking about Africana Virginia Beach. Now, it's a new event that's coming to the resort city, but is it more than that? We'll find out. For producer Lisa Godley, audio engineer Victor Bowen, Kiara Dunstan, who answered our phones, I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Thanks for listening, and let's get together again next Friday at noon for Another View.